Okay, I am just okay. I'm just looking to see up. We're live. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us okay. If not, let us know. And we are here with the latest installment of the Lost and Found Bin. I'm your host, SMQ, and my co-host, obviously, is Chick. And we usually start out with how our weeks or how our week has gone. And Chick, how has the week gone for you?
It's been very up and down. I was saying for a while now about December 21st, and there
Mm-hmm.
was actually a crazy Schumann resonance spike yesterday. So I'm waiting to see if there are geo changes rolling in. I imagine there would be. So that did, at least as far as the Schumann resonance goes, that did come to pass, so to say. But I'm not sure how much we're going to get on the geo shifting. I'm going to be watching that, and if there is big movement, then I'll live stream about it for sure.
Awesome, awesome, very cool, very cool. Yeah, and this week obviously was a big week, on my end, not for Mandela Effect stuff, but I was able to do a recording of an interview for the Higher Side chat. So with Greg Carlwood, which is awesome. I don't know. Are you a fan of? Do you watch their YouTube stuff?
I haven't seen their stuff. I know that we chatted about it in the past, and I was actually confused about who they were.
Yeah.
So now I know who to look for. But before that, I thought it was Friedman Fry. And I was
Mhm.
like, is that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, the Higher Side chats, they're awesome. I've been fans of theirs probably now for years. I would say pre-2016. I don't know how long the channel's been going, but definitely at least since 2016, perhaps even as far back as 2015. And I never thought I'd be on the show because I mean the guests are just so real. They're just very good in their field. They know a lot about what they're talking about. Um, just the best of the best for I'm not going to pick out one person because I don't want to leave anyone out. But if you go see their particular videos, the people they have on there are really top notch. So I was incredibly just flattered to be asked on. So hopefully they said they were going to try to have the episode out before the end of the year. So everybody out there in ME land, hopefully we'll have a Mandela Effect episode out there for the Higher Side chat. So check it out. And sub and everything else, because anything you can imagine that's really juicy and really really good is out there, and they get the best experts, no doubt.
Awesome. So that they cover all kinds of different spectrums of like truth or hidden knowledge or things like that.
Yep, exactly. Truth, hidden knowledge, the occult, everything. I mean, flat Earth, you name it. I mean, they have covered it, and anything, missing technology. They even have. I'm trying to go down the list and stuff. They have Hollow Earth. They talk about, let's see, the hoax hierarchy. I'm trying not to use different people's names because there's such different, so many different kinds of people on there. I don't want to seem like I'm leaving anybody out. Although I will say I'm now doubly impressed, and I can't believe I missed this episode. And I've talked about him before. They had Thomas Sheridan on there, and he is from Ireland. He's Irish, and I sub to his channel, and I am a huge fan of Thomas Sheridan. And what he does is he's a magician with a K, and he's an occult practitioner, and he is incredibly um, giving in terms of his knowledge. And if you don't understand certain things, sometimes you can go to the channel, and he'll be very frank about different mythologies, or different kinds of ways in which our cultures have formed and stuff. And just really amazing. I'm so amazed. I can't believe I missed that episode. And that's what makes me mad sometimes. I don't want to say anything out of turn, but I've got the bell here turned on for the higher side chats, and I don't always get the bell rung here, so I know when a new episode is out. And I have my phone on me at all times, and it just doesn't always show up, even whenever you have the bell for YouTube. So everybody out there, just know sometimes you can have that bell hit and you won't get notified. So that's kind of a bummer.
It is for sure. I hear that so much in the ME community, not just on my channel or with our show here, but like with all kinds of different ME channels of they either don't get the notification or
Mm,
the person goes into live stream and lots of people want to see and they're the people that nobody gets notifications is basically what I'm trying to say is like live
mhm.
stream or a video. And I think it might be worse for us and for our community because I know on a couple of platforms, like even with totally irrelevant stuff, I seem to have a bit of a shadow ban and I'm not a big channel. So I can't imagine for the big channels like how much their outreach is suppressed on this. And I know that sounds paranoid, but I've literally had like the silliest stuff. Like I'll get 5 likes on music I did, but there'll only be one listen. Silly stuff like this, or more likes than
Yeah.
views, like on a video, or things that
Mhm.
don't add up. And it's not that the algorithm is lacking, or that YouTube's taking its time, or the other platforms are taking their time, because it doesn't change, it doesn't catch up. The numbers end up not making sense. And again, I kind of use that as a litmus test of how important it is what we're speaking about, because if it wasn't, there would be no reason for it to be quite so glitchy. I think if we were covering something else that was more favorable, the outreach might actually be increased rather than left to left to the zero notification pile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of playing into this. Let me ask you something. It's a bit less Emmy related, and I hope I don't turn a lot of people off, with this. But I know. Do you watch? And I don't know how many people out there watch Jay Chris or Jason Christopher with the I Am channel or whatever. You're aware of his channel, right? I think we've talked about him.
Yeah, I was aware, like especially when his channel was a lot smaller, I used to get a lot of notifications, and I haven't gotten notifications in forever. But when
Yeah,
anything I have seen, he's got a bunch of views, so it's not. I don't think it's like wrecking his channel, like the
yeah.
notification
Well,
thing.
what I would he recently put out a video, and I wanna get your opinion on this, and I'd love to get, everyone in the chat's opinion about this as well, is he recently put out a video here, he put it out on the 21st, so yesterday, about, defunding truthers, and he was talking about this comment that he got that, these people were saying that somehow he's like a shill or he's selling out or something because he has a Patreon. He tries to support himself through I assume it's either supplement his income or it's his whole income. I don't want to speak for him. I don't know enough about the channel, but he does PayPal, he does Patreon, and he tries money from what he does. And he highlighted this commenter because I it was particularly interesting to me because I get, just a deluge, and you've gotten a couple lately of just incredibly negative comments in the comments section. I mean, I get them by the hour, and they just say horrific things, and sometimes I put them up on Twitter, and sometimes they're so bad I can't even put them on Twitter because I don't want the language associated to my name, but even if I'm saying this is happening to me. But he got this thing, and these people are saying, and I'm going to quote here: "Hold up, my dude, you're making money off of products using the name and image of quote I am. You're kidding me, right? I'm supposed to love my neighbor, but." But man, people like you make it hard. PayPal and Patreon supporters for what? Selling, quote, the truth? Shame on you. Which which one of the emojis are you? And then a guy replied that he put into his icon saying, well, the guy's pushing the Mandela effect. What do you expect? What's your opinion on that when with PayPal and Patreon and stuff like that? What do you think about stuff like, YouTubers that do that stuff?
I think like my view on it is kind of the relationship that you have with the people that interact with your channel is different
Mhm.
with every channel. And I feel like from the onset, I think that he had like his I am stuff, and he had, uh, wanting to supplement income or whatever. So he made that understanding clear. So I feel like anyone that's turned off by that or doesn't want that could check out, could say, oh, okay, well, that channel's not for me just because I don't like that because my beliefs about money or whatever, societally about how money is evil and truth is good. And for some people, like, you shouldn't mix the two. And for some people, I know there was a lot of stuff in the truther community, years ago now, about Oprah because she was using I am as part of her kind of like new age manifestation stuff. And a lot of
Mm.
people don't talk about this now, but like Oprah had this whole thing going about almost like her take on how she like does her stuff, or I'm not even sure how to explain that properly, but a lot of people felt that it was blasphemous because, of course, in the Bible it says, I am that I am, when Moses was like asking God, like, what's going on, with the burning bush, who are you and what's going on? And God answered, I am that I am. So then when Oprah started using it, not in that context, but kind of about herself and how she could manifest because she was the I am, or, this, I think it was like 2011 or 2012 or something when people were talking about this. So it was ages ago, but that could still be in a lot of people's minds. And they might be saying, like, oh, he must be wrapped up in her kind of ideas because look what he's putting out. And it's been such a long space of time that it's possible, but it's very possible he's never heard of it.
Well, but what I'm talking about though is like, what do you feel about, just the general idea of Patreon and monetization of a channel or trying to make money at YouTube? I mean, just using PayPal or Patreon and those kinds of things.
Well,
I'm seeing on a lot of the chatters here, they seem to not have a problem with it overall so far I'm seeing.
yeah, I think Carol California kind of agrees with me there. It depends on the channel. Like, there's some channels that they just they don't go into like the heavier things or truth or anything like that. There's some people literally just putting on makeup or camping and recording themselves. And, this kind of like more surface level stuff. And they have all kinds of Patreon and PayPal and Amazon wish lists and every other kind of thing. And it's kind of like, if the people supporting you are okay with that, then that's okay. But I think that if you personally don't like that, then you shouldn't put that into your channel because that's something that you have, on the inside that you don't quite agree with, or there's something inside of you that doesn't want to go down that route. Because really, as soon as you add money to the equation, there's
Mhm,
going to be not just accountability and expectation,
mhm,
but there's also going to be control. Oh, you
mhm,
can't say that, you're monetized. Oh, you can't do that, people are paying you. Oh, you can't do this, or you can't do that. You can't take a month-long vacation. There's people on Patreon paying you. You need to keep producing content. You can't
yeah,
do this. It turns the whole thing into a totally different thing than kind of like a channel where it's more and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I just feel like my channel is more about socially being involved with the Mandela Effect community. It's almost like my
mhm,
Twitter account or something. I don't
sure,
see it as a revenue thing, but that's
mhm,
just me personally. Someone else probably, maybe they say, well, I'm putting loads of time into the Mandela Effect. I'm editing loads of videos and doing loads of stuff, and therefore I need to make money because I got loads and loads of bills to deal with. I mean, we all have bills to deal with, but for me, like I live stream a lot, so there isn't that much editing involved and things like that. But I mean, if I was editing massive, complicated videos all of the time and it was
Mhm.
taking enormous amounts of time, maybe I
Mhm.
would need to. I don't know, but it's not something thankfully I've had to get involved with, so I don't have to worry about, YouTube slamming down on me over
Sure.
copyrights or over anything else, which is very, very, very handy. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure the other channels get that a lot of like, oh, you accidentally used someone's copyright, or they're claiming your copyright, or. But yeah, I don't think that it's an evil thing to ask, to say I have a Patreon and I have a PayPal. If you guys want to support me, you can. I don't think that's bad to do, and I think that immediately separates, what people are still interested in you with that involved, and what people that's just a deal breaker, that's out of bounds for.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, uh, um, Angelia said, "People deserve to be compensated for their work." Yeah, that's pretty much where I stand. I don't have a, Patreon account or a PayPal account, but, I've toyed with the idea of doing something, like that in the past before. I don't know if it would be necessarily this exact channel, and certainly it wouldn't be the Lost and Found bin, but, you know, I see both sides. I see everybody's side, and I understand it. I know some people even have trouble with monetizing of videos, and that, to me, I mean, I monetize. I absolutely monetize because, one, it's there. It's just something you click on, but also, monetization. You don't really get a lot. I mean, I think I've been on YouTube since February of 2017, and, I've had that one monster video, and I don't think I've broken 500 bucks.
I
So,
hear you.
I think a lot of people, and I used to get a lot of those comments, "Oh, you're cashing those checks," and it's like, "No, I'm not. I'm really not." I'm like,
You're
"A
like, they're not
serious."
very big checks. Oh
I'm like,
boy.
"No, seriously, I'm not cashing any checks, I'm telling you, man, and it's like, I think the IRS, you can't even report it unless it's I think it's you've gotta make over $500, or I think their number's like $500 to report to the IRS, and I think Google sent me something, like, last year telling me that I didn't qualify because I made so little. So, I don't it's kinda funny, so, it's just something I felt bad for him because I watch his channel. I just wanted to get, and I'm reading everybody's stuff, and thanks guys for chiming in on this. Rockbiter, everybody who's chiming in here, I really appreciate it. And of course, Carol, thank you so much. Yeah, it's just I wanted to see, and yeah, obviously, Agent Smith about the deplatforming, and it gets political with Patreon and PayPal, the deplatforming, but I can see all sides, but I truly understand if you wanna get paid for your work, there's nothing wrong with that. I get it totally. But, um, I felt bad for him because I know he really is, he puts a lot of time. He almost puts out a video a day, and I know that he has some kind of Patreon following and that he really works at it, and he works really hard, and I think he wants to grow I think he sees it as a brand, and I'm not gonna talk for him, and I say this as someone who watches his work with admiration, um, because I think a lot of the things that he has to say are very interesting and entertaining, but, it's just a shame. But another thing that, I'm learning that comes with the turf is you're gonna get a lot of people saying a lot of horrible things, um, almost constantly, especially if you have a video that gets anywhere near some of the counts that he gets, which is in the thousands. You're gonna get people who just absolutely think you're just a monster. So, that's just, that just comes with the game. But, I had switching gears, I guess we both said our opinions on that. I had an interview, um, with, uh, a friend of mine who, well, he's definitely my friend of mine. This guy, Billy Ray Valentine, on his podcast before this show, and, he also has a show, Truth Frequency Radio, where I do too. Just a quick plug for that, you guys. Truth Frequency Radio, the Lizard Ritual, that will be tomorrow at 5 o'clock on Eastern time, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And Billy Ray, he's a really really good guy. And anyway, we got into this the Mandela Effect, obviously, and it got really really. By the way, his show is called The Infinite Fringe on Truth Frequency. I want to give him a plug there because it's a friend of mine. But we were talking about the Mandela Effect, and he had this really interesting couple interesting ideas on the Mandela Effect. And that's why I called the show "The Mechanics of the Mandela Effect." And I wanted to run by you, Chick, and people in the chat as well. What do you guys think about this? So we have sort of our brain, which we know, and all of us we're all, regardless of what our spiritual backgrounds are. There's very few hardcore, I would say, atheists in our following here, in our movement, in our we're more than just a chat. We're a thing now. We're like a force that the lost and found been. But I don't think there's a lot of reductive materialists here. There's a lot of us, we're very spiritual, and we come from different backgrounds. But I think we all agree in the spiritual world, the unseen, the veil, the afterlife, all of those things. He was talking about an interesting idea. What if, and this is just speculation, what if we have the brain, which is the physical aspect of the transmitter, let's say we call it, right? And then we have our soul or our spirit or whatever you want to call it, but there has to be a connection point. And some people may think it's the pineal gland, and there's other parts too where the actual conscious being that makes us us, and then our physical body, right? Where it connects, that transmitter area, right? Where the body and the soul actually connect, that thin space, it's called the terminator. That whenever in the earth, whenever it goes from night to day, that thin space between the two, the dusk, it's called the terminator. But for our purposes, I don't really, we'll call it the pineal gland. Let's just call it for now, where the spiritual you meets the physical you. What if, either through nefarious means or natural means, the Mandela effect is a glitch that's happening between the spiritual you and the physical you, because the brain is what sort of sifts through and shakes out reality so it makes sense to you and you can make sense of it. And what if it's actually in that sort of in between space between the spiritual and the physical that's being tampered with, and it's like a glitch, almost like a bad part on your computer where the screen glitches or something. What do you think about that?
I think it's very possible. I mean, looking at it, especially in that kind of a lens, kind of a mechanical lens of the situation, there could be an interference because, that's one of the, shall I say, the more fluid parts of our consciousness is that kind of in-between zone. And I would see that in-between zone as, yes, the connection point between the spiritual reality and the physical reality. And I would also see it as that point between almost falling asleep or just about coming out of sleep. And I've
Mm-hmm.
recently also been connecting that with peripheral vision as well, and how your peripheral vision is the crossing point, is that kind of in-between space, in between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind while you're awake. That's why a lot of people can see things in their peripheral vision spiritually that they don't see with the front part of their vision, the hunter part, which is all about the conscious mind and movement and, those kinds of things. I think that it's very possible if there was a glitch or a, virus, so to say, or an interference signal, perhaps, getting in between that spot where the soul and the body kind of connect up. There could be not just glitching in what the perception is, but maybe even glitching into what vibration of reality of physical body you're actually attaching to. Um, it
Yeah.
it could be like, for me personally, I think that that connection point is at the back of the neck, kind of the nape and the neck there. Because I've definitely had situations. I don't know if has anybody in the chat ever had like a bad shock, or something has happened, and the first thing that emergency responders or someone that's like trained, the first thing they'll do is talk to you and physically like touch you, like put their hand on your hand or something, and that's to ground you. And even though this is from the materialist world, this training, it is to ground the spirit back into the body, because after a bad shock you can get completely ungrounded and confused and everything else. I don't know if that's a practice in this timeline, but where I'm from, it was definitely a practice even for people that didn't believe in the soul, didn't believe in anything. They believed in grounding. So
Oh,
I think,
wow.
yeah, so I would always argue with them on that point. Is like, if you don't believe anything's there, what are you grounding exactly? Oh, it's just called grounding. Oh, it's just whatever. I'm like, no, there is something. There is definitely, if you've had a bad shock and then you are grounded by another person, at least where I'm from and the experiences I've had, you can actually feel yourself aligning more, like centering more. And for me, it was very extreme because I've had a lot of different things in life. So I would become like a bit ungrounded to try and numb myself to that kind of stuff. And when I would become grounded again, I would literally feel shorter, like I had gone
Mm.
back down into my physical self, and I'm like, I'm really only this tall. Like, this is crazy. I don't know if
Oh,
that stuff
wow.
happens here, but that was like par for the course where I was from. So in that, I believe that that connection point is the back of the neck there. And in that, I do believe there can be interference with that, especially if you're upset or shocked or anything like that, which causes the individual to be ungrounded. That would be the perfect time to try and mess with that signal, that perception signal between the spiritual and consciousness and the physical reality of an individual.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes an incredible amount of sense, and I like the idea of that frequency thing and the shock, and that's very, very interesting. Weird, strange fact about me, and, oh, and by the way, in case, let me see, I think Rockbiter, he was mentioning that 3 times. Welcome. There's a lot of NDEs here, and that seems to be not 100%, but I would probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 or 80% of MEs has had an NDE or something outside of that. And certainly astral experiences and, like Chick is talking about, experiences that are almost so powerful, they are hard to define. So, that's great. Welcome. And actually welcome to everybody that I'm seeing some new people here. But yeah, that's certainly that's a good one there. But then he brought up another idea of how there's like sacred geometry. There's like the world is made up of different kinds of Fibonacci sequences, and there's like it's all perfect and it's all mathematical and it's very much, it's very much, under control in terms of the symmetry and the beauty and the mathematics of all of it. What if the Mandela effect is finally, a kind of remainder, some numbers that are left over, so the number used to be like 1, it would end in a final 1 or whatever, a 144 like a Fibonacci number, but now it's like a 144.0001. It's just off, just a little bit off center, like the numbers that create sort of, like the lotus and the circles and everything else, anything out there, that's associated with, the math, the sacred geometry. What if now everything is off by just a little bit?
That immediately is reminding me of The Matrix, when Neo was talking to the architect and they were having a conversation very similar about like how the reality that they had created, they were
That's what he
always
brought
trying.
up.
trying to get it in perfect balance, and it was never in balance. And the architect was like, "It needs a lesser mind to figure out this equation. Like, I just can't do it." So, yes, it
That's what he
definitely
brought
makes
up.
me think of that. Oh, maybe that's he's on the same thought pattern of that too. I'm like, yes, it's very, very possible that if it is a situation where you have an architect that's not God, in my opinion, like if there is an architect that's more like an archon or some crazy thing like this, or a different kind of cosmology on that, you could certainly have a situation where you have a bunch of code that doesn't exactly work out. Like there's a leftover that keeps
Hmm.
shifting from one side of the equation to the other, and it's not able to balance out properly. And that's why you're not able to ever get a smooth running system. It's like you'll get so far and then you get that crash screen. Whereas in the Mandela effect, what we're seeing is every kind of thing from switching circumstances or realities or timelines, or however we want to say that, all to all the way out to like Unimundi's work and the colors changing and glitching, and different things like street signs being bleached out and then being normal again. Like there's all kinds of glitchy, strange things that
Hmm.
perhaps is a system that's trying to balance itself out and isn't able to.
And in the chat, I see QP mentioned that we had a shift a few days ago, maybe 3 days ago, and that their cat is a totally different color than before. And I was thinking, I was driving over a bridge this week, and I don't know if it was 3 days ago, but it was sometime this week. And I'm not kidding, folks. I saw a flock of birds in the sky, and the sky was gray, and the birds were there, and I was driving, but it wasn't that heavy of traffic, so I could stare for a minute, and they disappeared. Like, poof, they were gone. Not, hey, I looked at the cars it and I turned and it was just they veered off out of my vision. No, they disappeared, man. They were gone. So, I'm certainly aware that something happened this week that was probably pretty big, but, I don't know, that was that was really strange for me, and it was so tiny that I don't know, and I don't think it was a lot of times I think, I really internalized some Emmy experiences like the car accident one we've talked about before, but this one was just like it was gonna happen anyway, as I didn't think there was anything attached to it, but, yeah, they were gone. They were just gone. It was very odd. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
I have, and it's pretty strange. And when I used to see things like that when I was a lot younger, I used to think that it was ghosts going back into like the paranormal, like when you just see people appear out of nowhere or out of a
Mhm.
wall or something, like they are walking as if there's a door there, but there's nothing there. I used to see a lot of that stuff and think that it was ghosts, and like, oh, it must be some like paranormal spooky thing because that's the only context that I was given for what that could possibly be. And now when I look back, I'm like, I've been seeing this for a very, very long time and attributing it to different things. Yesterday, for no reason at all, on my YouTube recommendations, a video came up of somebody recording live TV, and it's just a really short clip. I think there's only like 37 views. I shared it on my Twitter, and it's like they're interviewing a woman, and in the background, out of absolutely nowhere, a kid and a mom appear, and they're just walking like normal. It's
Mm.
it's glitch in the matrix or Mandela effect. It's the BBC News, so it's UK news. They're interviewing some lady, and then in the background, like these people just appear, and I think it's like how it looks on the screen. It's a 50-50 between, is it some weird glitch with like the signal was delayed or something weird like that, but the woman doesn't glitch, like she doesn't freeze or stop talking or anything. um and the mom and the kid just appear, and they're not, they're just acting normally. So it made me, of course, it fired off my imagination completely, wondering, like, is that what people see, like, when we shift out, when we change, and we don't even know, like, if we shift in the middle of the day, do we just disappear like that, or we just kind of
Yeah.
bubble into the new reality, and, like, the people who are going along with the system or haven't woken up to it, they don't even see it, or they can't, they can't consciously think about it. So even if you appear in front of them, they don't say anything, or they think it's ghosts or something, like I did when I was younger. I
Yeah.
wonder. I certainly
Well,
do.
there's another video out there like you're talking about where there was this car accident that happened and, the car disappeared, and I don't remember the sequence of the accident. It's a pretty popular one, and it's, a car I think it comes out of nowhere to smash into another car, and you can tell the people walking around, um they're shocked that this car came out of nowhere and it slams into another car, and it quite literally just appears. And it's not a glitch in the, camera because, I think there was like a lady in her stroller or with a stroller or something like that. They're shocked that the car is there, and then, or maybe I'm trying to remember what it was because it was huge a couple of years ago, and, now you're making me think about that because there's a couple of videos out there where people glitch in and out, and I think that's a whole kinda genre, unto itself, and now that could be tied to the Mandela effect, and when we shift, that could be like how you're right, someone who's watching us shift, boom, we're gone. And they're like, "Whoa, what was that all about?" And then, to us, we're still us, yet we've done that, quantum immortality theory where we've moved on, you know? It's very strange. And if you think about it, they talk about this all the time and they blame it on forests and all kinds of other things that millions of people disappear on the planet a year. And I don't mean disappear like they're missing persons like a normal missing persons, like they were abducted or like they went into, a 7-Eleven, a relatively small area, and someone will say, "Okay, um, we had this person come in here and they're not in the store anymore and they're gone," and no one ever sees them again. And we hear about that a lot.
It's true. I've talked before on my channel about the amount of people that go missing in the national parks, and not the people that get lost or, murdered or anything terrible like that. I'm talking about weird stories where people are literally with their families or walking on front of their families and disappear into thin air. Not that they go off to the side of the road and walk off and they can't find them, but literally just disappear on front
Yep.
of the people they're standing beside, and they search everywhere and they never find anything. I emailed you that link because I'm not able to post it because I don't have a wrench. I tried in the chat, but I'm not able to. But Dark Slayer saw the video I was talking about, the glitchy one, and he said he was dumbfounded by how crazy glitchy it was. Yes, there's so many people in mysterious and strange situations that disappear into midair. And does anyone remember that story from a little while ago about the guy that, I believe he was skiing or snowboarding in Canada, and he disappeared from the mountaintop and reappeared in California and had no idea how he got there?
Yes, I heard about that. Yes, I heard about that.
I believe that it's a real story. I believe that you can just like on the quantum level where quarks appear and disappear out of reality in random spots whenever they want to. Now on a major level, the odds, were always said to be small, but possible that an entire person could just disappear and reappear somewhere else. And in this case,
Yeah.
it's like maybe that guy was like Mandela affected, but he didn't shift timeline. He just kind of switched where he was, like in the same timeline. Just super weird. And I'm sure his family were very relieved that, he didn't end up in some other strange world, never to hear from them again.
And you've heard, a lot of those kinds of legends well before the internet of people disappearing, let's say in America, and they show up like what you're talking about, like halfway across the world. and whatever the authority is at the time, like, "How did you get here?" And they literally are like, "I have no idea whatsoever." And, you hear about that quite a bit, and again, when we look at these kinds of paranormal things, um, and you look at it through the, lens of the Mandela effect, they start to make a little bit more sense, with shifting and everything.
It's true, and it makes me think again about the story, the man from Torred. I mean, there's a lot of people that they don't have their passport with them situation, and they've shifted, and it's kind of interesting that his passport still existed when he shifted, even though it was a Torred passport and Torred didn't exist there. But
Mhm,
sometimes it happens that some of your stuff doesn't change, and then it kind of changes later if you're in a new place. Or sometimes your stuff will change completely as you go from place to place. That seems to be a little bit random. But I do think that this is probably a phenomenon that up until recently was so little of it was understood that it was just chalked up to whatever excuse is the most handiest. Like, oh, they just didn't want to go through the airport security or, something silly like that. It's like,
mhm,
no, you can appear, disappear, like, and I believe that only a short time ago would have been ludicrous to publicly state that, but I don't feel like it's ludicrous at all now. And I agree with what you've said since almost the beginning of this show is one day it's going to be so normal people will say, "Oh yeah, we always knew that." What are you talking
yep,
about? It's just for
mhm,
now people are not I have a feeling we're not going to get any pats on the back from the community at large. I think when they wake up, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I was always awake. I always knew that. Everybody knows that." I don't think they're going to
I
say,
do.
"Oh, you guys were pioneers. You guys did this when everybody mocked you. You guys." They're just going to go with the flow when the flow is ready for them to step into this as their normal reality.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm looking at this thing right now, and I don't know if I should send it out. I typed in "car accident disappears" on YouTube, and they have this video. They have the top 5 car teleportations caught on tape, and it has 1.3 million views. And, it's from Apex TV, and they just had the one I'm watching, and the car is driving off in the desert, and I have the sound off, so I have no idea what they're saying, but, the car, yeah, it looked like it glitched for a second, and then boom, it was gone, and now they're showing a bridge excuse me, they're showing a bridge, and they've sped up the bridge for some reason, so I don't know, um and it looks like it's a double bridge. So, but I'm waiting. I guess I can go ahead and send it out, I mean, if it's no good, it's no good. But all you have to do is search around a little bit in YouTube, and you can find this kind of thing. But I just typed in "car accident disappears" because there's one specific one I was looking for, and, I'm not gonna send it out. You guys can, because I don't want it to seem that I'm endorsing anything, and obviously, typically with things like this, it's very easy for skeptics to write it off, these glitches, so, for now, I'll go ahead and just say, look for it on YouTube, but there's a lot out there, and I experienced that this week, and it was just and you're right, I guess because I've been in it so long, normally, I probably would have swerved the car into 3 lanes of traffic, but I was like, "Yeah, yep, that's about right," and it was fine. That's how I guess as far down the we are together with this thing, because I was like, "Yep, there they go. That was it, I must have shifted."
Where you can find a lot of footage like that is actually under time travel.
Mm,
If you guys want to YouTube time travelers or time travel or anything, you'll actually see a lot of footage like that of cars glitching in and out of reality, people glitching in and out of reality. Um, there's weird footage of like people that almost get run over by cars, but someone just appears out of nowhere and pulls them out of the way. Like weird, strange things like that. So I think that um, there is a lot of information that hasn't been looked at that probably does pertain to the Mandela effect that's kind of been put in the folder of time travelers and time travel. because it's dimension travel is not something that's been understood or kind of, seen until recently. Although in the John Titor original post, he did say that when you time travel, you don't end up in the timeline you started from. So it essentially was dimensional travel.
Mhm. I remember
But
that.
ask him about the future, and he'd say, "I can only tell you about the future where I'm from. I don't know what your future is going to be like."
Yep. And, I see Carol here, Carol, California. She mentioned a story that I had heard about before. She says, "I heard a story on the radio yesterday about a woman who had actually taken, out and had to try and find a boyfriend she swears she had. She went into work and she found she was in the wrong department, and then, apparently she woke up and went to work to find that she no longer worked in that department that she's she thought she did, and she went to call her boyfriend and found out that he didn't exist, and she finally had to hire a PI. And, Carol, I've heard that story before. I don't know if, I don't know how real or whatever it is, but I've heard about that woman before, and, this again, once you're an ME, all of these odd things suddenly, they start to make sense and they fall into place, and you start to realize there's this kind of symphony, this discord symphony happening. It's sort of, the math, the leftover numbers in the math system, so to speak. It's very strange. But going back to what you're talking about, the time traveler, you're right. He's more or less a, dimension jumper. He's not really a time traveler, actually.
Yes, and that story's actually been Mandela affected. That story was called The Woman from Another Dimension. That's on
Oh.
YouTube as well, but it's put under time travel, not Mandela Effect. And originally, she woke up, found out that she was in a different department, all that stuff, went to call the boyfriend, found out he was married to somebody else, and that he wasn't living in her apartment at all. Like his stuff wasn't in her apartment. They had broken up 3 years earlier, and she's just, Mandela affected, but obviously in a year before it was popular, so she didn't know what was going on. And while people might say, "Oh, that's wild and that's out there," I'm like, it's very much in line with a lot of the stories you hear every day now. But I think that at the time, people would have thought it was too fantastical and too impossible, so they would have chalked it up to who knows what. I
Mhm.
think it's a real story, and I think she probably kept herself anonymous because people definitely would have said you're crazy and screamed at her, and like the abuse that we get. And she didn't have a community to back her up at the time. They would have just said, "Oh, you have mental illness or something," because that
Mhm.
people can only see as far as the parameters of their own perception and understanding. So no matter how much proof you bring to somebody, they can only see as far as they're able to imagine. And if their imaginations have been very much shrunken down or beaten down by their circumstances and surroundings, they're just going to go to the easiest, laziest excuse, just like what we always see with the Mandela effect. When you show someone the world has changed, history has changed, they'll reach for the laziest excuse. "Oh, well, scientists just found that out yesterday. Oh, well, maybe everyone was mentally ill and just can't remember anything. Oh, well, the human mind just doesn't work and you can't remember your own mom's name and that's why it changed," or, just ridiculous things that don't even make any sense. So I definitely feel for people that were in this situation a long time ago before a community. I've known people that they jumped here to the Orion Arm like in the year 2000 or 2001 or like those kind of years when it wasn't popular at all, and they just kind of had to suffer alone in it and just stay quiet.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. So I'm seeing a lot of new people in the chat, and, for the new people that are around, thank you for coming to Chicken Eyes Show, the Lost and Found Bin. But, things like, sleeping patterns, yeah, they will change significantly depending on the shift. Um, and with these shifts, for me now personally, I know, I've now added visuals to my symptoms with these birds, and I don't know if someone was being a troll or it was a new person. These birds did not fly into clouds. These birds just were gone. I know what it looks like for birds to fly into clouds. I've seen it countless times, and that's not what this was. This was very, very odd. It was it was very, very different, and, like you were saying, I'm glad we have this community, and hopefully we can get big enough, even if it's not us in this channel, just the idea of me that when people have these, circumstances now, we could probably widen the spectrum of what we consider an ME now for things like this as well, for people who go to a job that they never had, or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be. Because certainly we've heard from other channels people losing family members or gaining family members, or their spouses acting different. So all of this is certainly now within the realm of ME. And ME is almost, as far as I'm concerned, and I think you feel the same way, Chick. It feels almost engulfing. It's like engulfing everything around it.
Yeah, and it kind of, when you look back into your own memories, you have a new context, like a new lens that you can kind of examine things through. And that's not to say, oh, everything I've ever seen that I couldn't explain is the Mandela Effect. It's just that there's a lot of things that, like I said, the kind of explanations that you've gotten from television and from culture is like, oh, it must be ghosts, it must be paranormal, it must be,
Mhm,
whatever. And in a lot of situations, that doesn't seem to be the case, especially with how life is nowadays.
mhm,
It seems to be that we're at a point of our existence, or of our, what you could even say, just like the makeup of what we are now, seems to be that it's almost natural to be in different places all the time, and to be just kind of almost as if life itself has become superpositioned. You just show up at different
mhm.
points whenever. And
Oh,
we've
yeah.
discussed the linear breakdown before, but I'm saying that the life cycle itself, the whole thing, to me, I don't think that it's linear from here on out, especially if this never stops. You can't really be inside of time if you're never following time. And I think somehow, some way, we kind of beat the system, this cyclical system of just being stuck in time, and just that's it and you're done. I have no idea what effect long term it'll have on our bodies, or our minds, or any of that. But I can say that we are seeing things that we never would have gotten to see otherwise, and we have no idea just how amazing it's going to get in the future. I'm definitely at this point confident in saying I believe that we will see a Pangea Proxima, because the last shift that we had, my last live stream, for any of the fam here who were with me on the last live stream, Asia has become so condensed and crunched together. And I haven't even looked at Asia yet for today's shifts from the Schumann resonance yesterday. But I'm just talking about the last shift. It's become so condensed and crushed together that I don't think there is any other situation that I see it being, except for it completely coming together and merging. India is getting
Mm,
smaller and smaller and smaller, and their population is not disappearing, so it's getting frantic there. The other countries, their populations are getting smaller and smaller, and their landmass is disappearing. China is so much smaller than it was last month. Like, it's absolutely insane. Australia is so much closer to the equator. It's actually insane. And almost all of the island nations in Asia are touching each other at this point. They're almost all touching each other, or formed along the same ridges of the tectonic plates. Like, they're the whole thing is. I don't really even have the words to describe like how shocked I was at the last shift, because I knew it was coming, but it was so long coming that I wondered, would it actually ever happen? Would it actually be, was it going to be a couple of years down the line? And I do see it coming to a definite, a definite. What can I say? It's gone past another chapter in the story, I think, is the best way to say it. And I think that it's all going to be crunched together. I don't know what I even give it 5 years, to be honest with you.
well, I mean, since I've started watching South America, I mean, I remember when Florida was over, um, was over Colombia, and since I've watched it now Florida is I don't even think it's lined up anymore. I mean, I'd have to check now, is with even Chile. I don't even think it keeps moving so far east, South America. I mean, I think the Pangea, idea is on the table now in terms of even broad continents touching, at this point. And I know and I'm using this language, I'm about to use this language, and I don't mean to use it in the way that, materialists use it, but, there are evolutionary jumps, and I don't I and they said, like, when we started talking, there's a fringe and it's always fringe that ends up being right, but there's a fringe group of scientists out there, mainstream scientists out there that said, "We started talking in 1 day." Like, boom, it just happened, and these were reductive materialists who said, yes, that when evolution happens, it happens immediately. It's violent and it's immediate. And, I'm wondering if, this Pangea thing and the moving of continents and things like that, if this is just the setting up of a massive move that may happen over a very condensed period of time where they've moved apart and then we wake up one day and they're almost there. We wake up the next day and holy smokes. And then the next day, hey, we can drive anywhere we want in the world, literally, because they're all now connected.
Yeah, like Florida seems to be over Panama right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Florida's
Yeah.
lined up with Panama. It's not even lined up with Colombia anymore.
Yeah. And that was way a couple years ago that I was looking at the world map, and I was like, "Okay, that's weird." That's when I first got into, the Mandela effect, and I first started noticing the changes, and it was, I'm pulling up the Google Maps now so I can tell you exactly where, I wanna pull it up, and I wanna go exactly come on, Google. They hear me, and they want me to not make my point. They're like, "No, you're not gonna make your point.
You can't
You're
have
not gonna
that. No
you're
way.
not no, you are not gonna zoom out." But, okay, it's alright, cool, it's got the zoom out little thing, so it'll just and now I've zoomed out so far, it is just a tiny planet. Okay, Florida was over yes, Florida is smash it's was over Venezuela, excuse me, and now Florida is pretty much almost aligned with well, it's past Bogota, actually, you go straight down, and it's closer to Ecuador and Peru, and it's almost missed the entire continent of South America, and now if you look at Brazil, and you look at Liberia, Sierra Leone, anything like that, I mean, they are getting closer and closer and closer, and it looks weird, and now I'm looking at it even just from a few weeks back, it just looks weird and strange.
Yeah, and Florida is pointing outwards again, like it's pointing eastwards instead of being straight down. It was straight down for a while.
It was aligned with the rest of that slope from, like, North Carolina, and it slopes all the way down, and that slope was consistent with Florida. That's now changed, as well as I see here Cuba. Cuba seems to be the front part, the part that's closest to Haiti, seems to be tilting down now a bit more. And when I was speaking on the higher side chats, I think it was interesting explaining to people that the Panama Canal now goes from north to south, and it's no longer an east to west kinda thing, so, yeah, it all looks very odd, it's very strange, and it almost looks like Cuba is on a mission to seal up the Gulf of Mexico, perhaps.
Maybe so, because that the opening of the Gulf of Mexico has been getting smaller and smaller, like for a while. And the
Mhm,
Hudson Bay
mhm,
has been getting bigger and bigger. The Hudson Bay is way bigger than the Gulf of Mexico right now. Crazy.
and I know that Hudson Bay is a monster, isn't it?
Yes, it took a big bite out of Canada for sure.
And Canada is just engulfed, actually now really everywhere in the northern part of the lower 48, but most of Canada, just the amount of lakes is just overwhelming now.
Yes, we have these weird shifts sometimes where lakes get out of control. It was a couple of months ago. Russia turned into like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lakes, like right
I remember
next to
that.
each other. That was crazy. And then they all closed up again from on the next shift.
Mhm.
It was super
Yeah,
strange.
I'm looking now too, and I'm trying to see, the Bering Strait, between the 2 continents, and, that looks pretty far. Actually, it looks farther than it was before. I don't know. I don't watch the geo as much as, like you guys do, 'cause, it really bothers me actually, to be quite frank with you.
But sorry, at least you're, familiar with it that if you do wake up and it's Pangea, you won't be that surprised.
Mm, mm. And I was explaining yesterday, the big one is my favorite is the bridge now. Copenhagen is basically the bridge now between, like, Sweden and Denmark. It's like they're connected now. So,
Oh my gosh. And
it's,
it's
like,
weird
totally
that
connected.
nobody, um well, I suppose they aren't themselves. They're the version of themselves with the memories from here. But I was going to say, nobody I know in that kind of area of Europe remembers the layout of Europe like I do, because Denmark is like a huge trigger point for me. Like, that was one of the first things I saw in my shift in 2008. Like, what is Denmark doing there? What's happening?
Mhm.
And yeah, everyone's like, oh no, Denmark was always there. I'm just like, no, no, it certainly wasn't. This is totally crazy. And even like the shape of Germany and Austria and everything is completely crazy. And I asked a friend that I actually went to Berlin with, and she doesn't have the memories. She only
Mm.
remembers this map here. And I'm like, we literally physically went there together, and some of the places we went to don't exist, and you just have holes in your memory. You don't know like what's actually what I'm trying to get here. I don't know. It's just like when you've been to places and then they're not the same places at all, and you've been there with people and they're not the same people at all, you're just kind of like, well, I can tell the community about this, but even though it's such a huge deal to me, for the people around me or even for Germans I know or anything like that, it's not a big deal. They don't even remember anything closely similar to what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm looking at Sweden now, and the shape of Sweden is not even anything because I don't look at the map very often. It now resembles nothing like, what I remember. There's, like, this dip inside of it about midway up if you go from south to north. And actually, the southern part of Sweden now for me, it's absolutely something I don't recognize whatsoever. There's, like, this bump on the, east coast of it that was not there before, and it makes no sense. And then the size of these lakes in the south of it, it's just, to me, it makes no sense. It's just I don't understand it. It's so bizarre. And the shape of the Baltic Sea is just weird. Everything is just see, this is why I don't do this very often because I'm really getting kind of, like, disoriented almost. Um, and I wonder, with these changes like this, do you think that it, like right now, I know that they're doing riots and stuff in France, and I don't know what it's really all about. But do you think, when we do these, there's a correlation between mass behavior and, kind of shifts or Mandela effects, or is it, because I'm still trying to square, are we moving to different versions of reality? And if people are rioting in France in this version of reality, that's just the way it was. Or are people moving to different versions and they're feeling it and they're reacting in different ways that are hostile or whatever? It's I haven't squared the two yet.
I think that a lot of people are locked into the reality that they're from.
Hmm.
Like, I know that there are updates and there are weird glitches and shifts and things, but I honestly think that there are a lot of people who are telling you the truth when they say that they're from here or somewhere that looks really similar to here, and like they're Mandela affected about some things, but not so much the map because this is where they grew up and they have memories and everything. Like I believe that there are people who have been Mandela affected for a long time who are from different layouts of the world map. So I don't think that
Mm,
there's just one world map and only you have it right and everyone else is wrong. That's like completely oversimplifying the situation because I see some people say that like, oh, it's the way I remember it and everyone else is just wrong. Clearly you're a bad person if you can't hold on to your memories, like trying to equate it to morality or something. And I'm just like, that's not how this
yeah,
works. It's literally
mm,
not. Like there's like the nicest, most moral people that that don't get to hold on to their memories. They just get updated every single time, or we're getting moved and seeing different versions of them every single time. In all honesty, I used to get so involved with the news, so like watching the news all the time, getting all worried about everything, getting all into, especially around the 2012 era when everything was just fear, oh my gosh, what's happening in the news? Oh my gosh, we need to be afraid. Oh my gosh. And now, literally, things will happen. I'll see it play out, and then the second before everything crumbles, I'll just shift, and then
mm,
nobody has any memory of it, and it's all fine. And
mm,
that's even with the yellow vest thing. I was starting to watch it, and I got this immediate feeling of you're not gonna even get to see this play out. You can watch it if you want, but you're not involved with that anymore. You
right.
can't be because you're not in linear time. Like you try and get involved in stuff, and suddenly the whole country's changed, the whole backstory's changed. That movement never happened. That movement happened somewhere else. That movement happened 30 years ago. That movement will happen in the future. And I'm like, this is why I've been like set apart from kind of the world stage now. Like we all have. I'm just saying, like from my point of view, obviously in my shoes. Um, I can't think the old way I used to think because it's just not on the table anymore. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get to see it play out. Um, I've seen, the when Nibiru or the star called Wormwood was going to hit, when the missiles were going to hit Hawaii and Japan, and they didn't, and then the spellings changed of some of the Hawaiian Islands, and the Hawaiian Islands are all different now, so I guess something else happened. And the moon being hit, I saw that too, and all the frantic freakouts, and then just didn't happen. New timeline. And it wasn't
Yeah.
even just like, oh, Google removed all the videos. It's like, no, that didn't happen. Like what I saw happen to the moon doesn't have a crater that reflects that. It didn't, it hasn't occurred now in this place in this time. So it forces you to have a different perspective on what might be going on around you. Even though we don't have the answers, we don't know if it's some kind of weird simulation. We don't know if it's timelines. We don't know if it's reality is trying to balance the equation and it's not able to. So it just keeps distorting and coming back and distorting and coming back.
Mm,
I've definitely toyed with that idea because the map sometimes looks distorted. It almost looks like a painting where the paint is running, like it's still wet or something. The shapes of everything kind of distorts and gets very strange. And sometimes it'll get a little bit less strange, and then sometimes a little bit more strange. Even just these are fresh shifts that we're looking at here with Sweden. Sweden was not coming that far south like a few days ago, and just this fresh shift that came in today with the massive Schumann resonance last night. Sweden is like encroaching down upon Germany and Poland. The Baltic Sea is essentially cut off, and it's a big lake. And our old friend Lake Ladoga, beside St. Petersburg, is enormous now. It's really, really big, and it's coming up on the border of Finland. And yeah, the whole thing is really bizarre. I remember when myself and yourself and Agent Smith were talking about that lake for
yep.
the battles. The lake is twice as big now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So there's just a lot going on, guys. And this is how I end up on my extremely long live streams, because when I start to talk about the maps, it just kind of linchpins into how I perceive reality, and then I go on to a big roll. So I'm sorry, guys, that was kind of a tangent
Mm,
right there, but it
yeah,
definitely
that was awesome.
gets me going.
That was awesome. Okay, we're well over because it was an awesome episode, and we have an awesome, awesome like movement here. We're no longer just a channel. we're no longer just a show with 2 co-hosts. You know, we've got a lot of regulars here. We've got a lot of new people. Tell your friends, please, please hit the thumbs up. I'm SMQ. I even though my name is SMQAI, if had I known that people would mistaken me for some sort of AI or demonic force, I would have never put AI when I started, but I thought I was being cheeky. But I am a human being. I am real. A lot of you guys get that inside joke. Chick, her channel is out there. Just go Chick Mandela Effect. You can find her. You can find her on Twitter. You can check me out on Twitter, AI underscore SMQ for now. Um, and that's it. Any last words, Chick, before we shut down?
Just thank you so much, guys, and I hope that everybody has a good week. And please take care of yourselves because we're doing a lot of shifts right now, and you're probably exhausted and not feeling that good. I know I wasn't, especially last night. A lot of ear ringing and not feeling well, but hopefully, we will be able to have a little bit of rest between shifts now. That's what I'm hoping because we just had a really big one. So hopefully, we'll have a few days rest and just take care and take care of each other.
Right. And the reader, thank you for saying this is Saturday's best event. And thank you for the kind words. So thank you, Buster. Thank you, Yellow Sun, Bones McCoy. Everybody, I just, you guys are awesome. And they're all the regulars. Obviously, Asian Smith, thank you. Bling, thank you so much. Poppy, thank you so much. Bradley, thank you. Obviously, Carol, thank you. Bones, thanks. Just anybody I've missed, I'm trying to go up, and I just want to say thank you to everybody because, Dark Slayer, obviously, we're a movement. We're more than a show. We're more than a channel. We're more than 2 co-hosts. We are an event. So that's it, and that's how we're gonna end this week's episode. We're gonna end like champions, like the ME version of We Are the Champions. Goodbye.